Talking about some I don't fuck with her. You can't fuck with me. Just say that. Don't say you don't fuck with me. You can't. And that's why you're mad.
Mike, Savannah police have arrested Terrell Nelson for the murder of his former girlfriend, Cantrelle Hayes-Ross. She was just 34 years old. Her family heartbroken by this sudden loss and relieved that Nelson is now behind bars. Savannah police say Cantrelle Hayes-Ross was shot to death on Thanksgiving morning at the daycare center she owned, Friend Zone Learning on Augusta Avenue. SPD responded based on a ShotSpotter notification, but it was too late to save Hayes-Ross from her injuries. This man, Terrell Nelson, is now facing murder, aggravated assault, and parole violation charges in relation to her shooting death. Nelson is no stranger to law enforcement. This is the 10th time he's been incarcerated. His most recent charges back in 2018. Records show he served 3 years for an armed robbery and aggravated assault, also in Savannah. Nelson was on trial for murder after turning himself into police back in 2013. Nelson and another man were charged with fatally shooting a man on his front porch back in 2013. Both men were later acquitted. Police haven't yet said what the motive or the circumstances were surrounding this shooting. Hayes-Ross's family says Cantrelle was passionate about her career, and they're devastated she lost her life at the place she loved so much.
She decided she just wanted to go into the child care field and went from her being trained in child care to her wanting her own daycare. She said, "My mama do it." I didn't hesitate. I knew she was going to do it. And these kids were her life. They were her life.
Her family held a candlelight vigil and balloon release this weekend to honor her memory.
She was an outgoing person. She was real live, always the fun of the bunch. And she just was a great person all over. It wasn't nothing she wouldn't do.
Her family says they're thankful for all the prayers and support and for helping to get Nelson's photo out there on social media. They say this is just the beginning in their fight for justice, but at least they have a start.
In Savannah, Georgia, a woman known for caring for children and rebuilding lives believed in second chances, Cantrelle Hayes-Ross, a respected daycare owner, had opened her doors not only to families in need, but also to a man she once loved, a man recently released from prison. When she reconnected with her ex-boyfriend, Terrell Nelson, those close to her thought it was an act of forgiveness, maybe even hope. But as months passed, subtle changes began to appear, late-night arguments, uneasy messages, and a growing distance between the two. Behind the doors of her daycare, what began as reconciliation seemed to shift into tension and control. Then came Thanksgiving Eve, 2024. Parents expected to pick up their children. Staff prepared to close for the holiday. But by the end of that day, the scene outside the daycare would draw investigators, crime scene tape, and questions that Savannah still struggles to answer. Who was Cantrelle Hayes-Ross beyond the headlines? What made her give Terrell Nelson another chance? And what series of choices and warning signs led to the confrontation that ended in tragedy? If you are drawn to true crime stories that reveal hidden truths, we invite you to subscribe. Your support enables us to share real cases, raise awareness, and give a voice to those who can no longer speak for themselves. Before we begin, tell us in the comments where you are watching from and share your thoughts as the story unfolds. Welcome to Spotlight Crime, a place where we examine cases that shake communities and reveal what often remains hidden behind closed doors. Real stories, real people, real impact. Subscribe today and turn on notifications so you won't miss what comes next. Cantrelle Hayes-Ross was a longtime resident of Savannah, Georgia. She grew up in the local community and was known for her commitment to children and education. After completing her studies, she began working in early childhood care, first as a teacher's assistant before gaining the necessary qualifications to operate her own business. Her vision was to provide a safe environment where children could learn and grow while parents worked. Motivated by a desire to support working families, Cantrelle opened her daycare in Savannah. The business quickly became recognized for its structure, organization, and attention to safety. Parents frequently describe her as dependable, professional, and committed to every child's well-being. She maintained a small but reliable staff who assisted in daily operations, from managing schedules to ensuring proper supervision of the children. Her daycare followed strict routines. opening early each morning and closing late enough to accommodate parents' work hours. Cameras monitored every section of the building, and she ensured all employees were properly vetted. Through her success, Cantrelle built a respected reputation as both a business owner and a community figure. In her personal life, Cantrelle valued independence. She handled her finances responsibly, lived on her own, and was known to help others when possible. Friends describe her as someone who believed in rehabilitation, giving people opportunities to rebuild their lives after mistakes. That belief played a central role when she decided to reconnect with her former boyfriend, Terrell Nelson, after his release from prison. She saw the potential for him to change and wanted to help him regain stability. Cantrelle and Terrell had a relationship before his incarceration. It began years earlier, but ended after his legal troubles led to prison time. When he was released, contact between them resumed through phone calls and social media. Their reconnection appeared friendly at first, later evolving into renewed closeness. Family members and friends expressed caution, noting his past criminal behavior, but Cantrelle maintained that everyone deserved a chance to start over. Terrell Nelson had a criminal record that included charges related to violence and possession offenses. Upon release, he was under parole supervision, which required him to maintain stable housing and employment. Cantrelle offered both emotional and practical assistance, helping him find work, lending support, and giving him a sense of belonging. In the month that followed, Terrell frequently visited the daycare and sometimes assisted with minor repairs or errands. Outwardly, the relationship seemed cooperative. However, privately, signs of strain began to surface. Witnesses later recalled small arguments, jealousy over her independence, and increased control over her movements. Cantrell's colleagues noticed changes in her schedule and demeanor. Text messages revealed disagreements about commitment and trust. While there were no confirmed police reports during this period, communication records later obtained by investigators suggested repeated attempts by Cantrelle to set boundaries. Publicly, the two appeared to maintain a partnership, but behind closed doors, tension was building. The difference between their public image and private interactions would later become a key focus of the investigation. By late 2024, the relationship had grown unstable. According to individuals close to Cantrelle, she began expressing discomfort and considering ending things permanently.
Talking about some I don't fuck with her. You can't fuck with me. Just say that. Don't say you don't fuck with me. You can't. And that's why you're mad.
Witness statements indicated that she confided in a friend about the growing unpredictability in Terrell's behavior. Digital evidence later examined by authorities showed a series of text messages where Cantrelle attempted to distance herself, while Terrell sent messages suggesting anger and insecurity. Investigators noted an escalation in tone and frequency during the final weeks of November. In the days leading up to Thanksgiving, daycare staff noticed that Terrell appeared more frequently at the location, sometimes without prior notice. Parents also mentioned seeing him parked nearby on several occasions. There were reports that Cantrelle had planned to spend the holiday with family and intended to fully separate from Terrell afterward. She had reportedly told someone close to her that she no longer wished to continue the relationship. The night before the incident, a conversation reportedly took place between them where Terrell allegedly made a statement about hating kissing her, reflecting growing resentment. In that same week, his social media activity became erratic. Investigators later reviewed his posts, finding indirect references to betrayal and loss. Combined with phone records and witness accounts, this data established a pattern of agitation leading up to the day of the shooting. On the morning of November 27th, operations at Cantrelle's daycare followed their normal routine. Staff arrived around 7 a.m., parents dropped off their children, and the day's lessons proceeded as usual. There was no public indication that anything was wrong. By early afternoon, preparations began to close the daycare early for the Thanksgiving holiday. Parents arrived gradually to pick up their children, and staff cleaned and secured materials. At some point during the late afternoon, Terrell Nelson arrived at the daycare. Surveillance footage reportedly captured his vehicle entering the parking area. He was seen approaching Cantrelle near the entrance as staff members were finishing work. The two exchanged words, and witnesses nearby later described the conversation as tense. Moments later, multiple gunshots were heard. Several 911 calls were placed immediately, reporting a shooting outside the daycare. Law enforcement and emergency responders arrived within minutes. Officers found Cantrelle Hayes-Ross on the ground near the entrance with gunshot wounds. Despite rapid medical attention, she was pronounced dead at the scene. Terrell Nelson fled before police arrived, prompting an immediate search across Savannah and surrounding areas. The scene was secured, evidence markers were placed, and investigators collected shell casings and reviewed the surveillance recordings. Authorities confirmed Cantrell's identity and notified her family that evening. The Savannah Police Department launched a full homicide investigation, designating Terrell Nelson as the prime suspect based on eyewitness accounts and immediate digital evidence linking him to the crime. Over the following hours, officers traced Nelson's movements using cell phone data and vehicle sightings. The manhunt led to his eventual apprehension, though details of his arrest were later released after initial processing. That evening, Savannah police held a brief media conference, confirming the victim's identity and naming Nelson as a person of interest, urging the public to report any sightings. The case was assigned to the Savannah Police Department's homicide unit, led by detectives with experience in domestic-related crimes. Their priority was locating Nelson and confirming his direct involvement through forensic and digital evidence. Detectives first established a relationship history between the victim and suspect. They learned Cantrelle had previously dated Nelson, who had a criminal record and was recently released from prison. Interviews with her family revealed that she had helped him reintegrate into society after
the child care field, and it went from her being trained in child care to her wanting her own daycare. She said, "My mama do it." I didn't hesitate. I knew she was going to do it. And these kids were her life.
After his release, but tensions had grown in recent weeks after she attempted to end the relationship. A background review uncovered no active restraining orders, but investigators found a pattern of controlling behavior in messages and calls. Subpoenas for phone records and text data revealed that Nelson had called and messaged Cantrelle multiple times on the day of the shooting, with the last communication occurring less than 10 minutes before the gunfire. GPS data placed his phone in the area of the daycare during the same time frame. Forensic analysis matched the recovered shell casings to a 9mm handgun previously linked to Nelson in a prior firearm registration check, though he was legally prohibited from owning one due to his criminal record. Detectives also reviewed surveillance footage from nearby intersections, tracing his escape route to a known associate's residence. The coroner's report confirmed that Cantrelle died from multiple gunshot wounds to the torso. The ballistic examination confirmed that all casings recovered at the scene were fired from the same weapon, strengthening connection to Nelson. A reconstruction of the timeline suggested that Nelson arrived shortly before closing time, waited outside, and confronted Cantrelle as she stepped out of the daycare. Evidence pointed to premeditation. He had texted her earlier that day requesting to meet, and witnesses said he appeared angry and confrontational before the attack. After nearly 36 hours of searching, Terrell Nelson was located on November 29, 2024, hiding in a relative's apartment on the west side of Savannah. Officers surrounded the building and took him into custody without resistance. During arrest, investigators recovered clothing matching the description provided by witnesses. The firearm was not immediately located, but was later found discarded in a wooded area nearby following a tip from a confidential source. In police interviews, Nelson initially denied involvement, claiming he had not seen Cantrelle that day. However, inconsistencies in his statements, combined with cell tower records, surveillance footage, and eyewitness identification, directly contradicted his account. After being confronted with evidence, Nelson refused to provide further comment. He was formally charged with malice murder, possession of a firearm during the commission of felony, and possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Due to his parole status, additional charges related to violation of parole conditions were added. Court documents later revealed that investigators believed the shooting stemmed from Nelson's anger over Cantrelle's decision to end their relationship. The probable cause affidavit outlined detailed digital correspondence and witness testimony establishing motive and intent. Nelson made his first court appearance on December 2, 2024, where he was denied bond due to the severity of the charges and his criminal history. The Chatham County District Attorney's Office announced its intention to pursue the case as an intentional, premeditated homicide. Prosecutors presented a combination of forensic, eyewitness, and digital evidence, including phone records showing persistent contact attempts and threatening messages. The ballistic match between the recovered weapon and shell casings became a critical component of the case. Surveillance video depicting Nelson's presence at the daycare shortly before the shooting was used to strengthen the timeline. Defense attorneys argued that the shooting was not planned, suggesting emotional distress and lack of intent to kill. They also hinted at possible mental health issues, though no official psychiatric evaluation had yet been submitted to the court. The community response was immediate. Parents of children who attended the daycare attended hearings, expressing concern and disbelief that violence had occurred at a place of safety. Local organizations began public discussions about domestic violence awareness and the risks of reconnecting with formerly incarcerated partners. As of early 2025, Nelson remained in custody awaiting trial. Prosecutors indicated they would seek a life sentence without parole, citing the premeditated nature of the act and his prior record. Following the shooting, the daycare remained closed for several weeks. Ownership was transferred to another licensed operator under the supervision of city officials to ensure continuity for the affected families. Parents organized tributes outside the building, placing flowers and candles near the entrance where Cantrelle had been found. Family members described her as a hard-working and disciplined businesswoman who prioritized the safety and education of children. The community held multiple vigils to honor her legacy. Local media outlets highlighted the case as an example of how private domestic tensions can escalate into public violence. City leaders and advocacy groups initiated programs to educate residents on recognizing signs of domestic danger, emphasizing the importance of reporting threats early. The Savannah Police Department released a statement reaffirming its commitment to improving response protocols for domestic-related incidents. As the case continued through the legal system, several key questions persisted. Investigators reviewed whether earlier intervention might have prevented the outcome. Were there overlooked warning signs during the couple's reconciliation? Could community awareness or support systems have changed the result? The case prompted broader discussion about rehabilitation versus risk, how society balances forgiveness with safety when individuals with violent histories re-enter relationships. It also raised questions about whether stronger parole monitoring or counseling requirements might prevent similar cases. Ultimately, the murder of Cantrelle Hayes-Ross forced the Savannah community to confront uncomfortable realities about second chances, control, and the hidden patterns behind domestic-related crimes. For investigators, it served as another reminder that beneath everyday routines and familiar settings, danger can emerge quietly and escalate without warning. If this story has kept your attention, do not forget to like this video and share it with others. For more true crime stories that uncover the mysteries behind tragic events, subscribe to our channel and activate the notification bell to stay updated with our latest investigations, reports, and discussions. Thank you for joining us in this pursuit of truth and justice. Together, we can shed light where darkness remains. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.